Good afternoon. This is Gloria Nelson with the user group, and we'd like to welcome you to today's webinar. And before we get started, I want to give a quick plug for TUG. You don't want to miss this year's event. It's going to take place from March 8th to 11th at the Hilton Anatole in downtown Dallas. Lots of things to do in Dallas, so make sure that you write those dates on the calendar. Again, it's March 8th to 11th. And we're also happy to share with you the lineup of keynote speakers. On Monday, March 9th, Nick Tassler, author and thought leader, will deliver the keynote presentation. Nick is an internationally acclaimed thought leader, organizational psychologist, and #1 best-selling author of 4 counterintuitive books on the art and science of making decisions and leading changes. And on Tuesday, March 10th, you'll be hearing from Infor's new CEO, Kevin Samuelson, on the changes coming from Infor, and also from Kelly Squizero, Infor's Director of Industry and Solution Strategy, on changes and in the distribution industry. So be sure to save the dates now and watch the TUG website as our registration has gone live, and you want to make sure you take advantage of any early bird registrations. So without any further ado, I am going to turn this over to Paige Schrock, who is Phocas Systems Consultant, and he is joined today by Courtney Kubitsa, who is the Partner Marketing Manager. And just give me a moment, and I'm going to make Paige the presenter. And Paige, as soon as you have that up on your screen, you can go ahead and allow sharing and take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, Gloria. We appreciate you hosting us today. I'd like to personally welcome everyone to today's webinar, Inventory Visibility, How to Manage More Profitably. We really appreciate you taking the time in your busy day to review the Phocas data analytics solution and just how it'll help you to achieve growth and maximize efficiency within your business. As Gloria mentioned, my name is Courtney and I'm on the marketing team here at Phocas. Over the next 45 minutes or so, I'll be your host with Paige. For our agenda today, we'd like to cover why distribution businesses on Infor are using data analytics, what the benefits are, and how we'll show you a demonstration of Phocas, our data analytics solution. So what are the benefits of data analytics? When it comes to monitoring your inventory specifically, having all of your data in one place and being able to examine it helps you easily monitor these levels. Proactively identifying trends and patterns will help your business to remain profitable, responsive, and geared up for growth. One contributor to this is the ability to track customers and/or product ordering patterns, which will help you to avoid missing opportunities. What if you were able to see products your key customers are buying or aren't buying? And what if you run out of a product that's particularly quickly, or you find that you have one that's sitting on your shelves much longer than you had anticipated? If you saw this, would you change the way that you're ordering these products? Additionally, being able to easily create and share customized reports and dashboards will help to eliminate reporting and analysis challenges within your business. If everyone is looking at the same data in a format that they understand, then your teams can be made aware of the changes and adjustments that need to be made. Now it's time to bring what we've been talking to life and asking how these questions and more can lead to business-changing insights for your business. Paige, I'll hand it over to you for the demo.
Okay, thank you, Courtney. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paige Schrock. I am a solutions consultant here at Phocas. Prior to joining Phocas, I worked in purchasing and inventory management for a number of years, and I'm going to bring some of that experience to today's webinar as we talk about inventory management. So as I'm sure many of you are well aware, inventory management is something of a never-ending battle. As soon as you've negotiated a return of overstock to a vendor, suddenly you've got a branch manager who's on the phone telling you that they're desperately short of some item. And at the same time, you might have finance or even ownership hounding you to keep the balances down and to maximize your stock turn. It can be a lot to manage, and doing so successfully requires accessible and accurate data, along with a very good sense of what you want to do with that information. So with this in mind, in today's webinar, we'll be talking quite a bit about how to approach the many data-driven tasks and responsibilities of an inventory manager. Now, whether you're managing $30 million in inventory across a dozen branches, or you've got a single location with just $800,000 in stock, you're going to have a lot of the same concerns. So there's some obvious concerns like how much stock do I have on hand, how much of that is dead stock, which vendors are a problem that I need to address, is our inventory position creating cash flow problems within the business, and so on. These are all very important concerns, but the problem with many of these is that they're very much here and now issues. And what I mean by that is that the minute that you ask those questions, if the answer is in the negative, then you know you're already in trouble. At that point, you're just reacting to problems instead of actively working to prevent them, ahead of time. So a very clever person once told me that inventory is a function of time. And what does that mean? It's not a glib remark when you really think about it. Time is an incredibly useful lens through which to view your inventory. Either something is in stock and available for a customer now, or it's in the future and the customer has to wait. Problems with the vendor's service aren't typically related to just one shipment, for example, but are trends composed of multiple shipments over weeks or months. Dead stock is an incredible example of how important and helpful it can be to look at inventory as that function of time. Almost no product that might currently be considered dead stock started out that way. Maybe it was a fast mover, but then it was replaced via a rolling substitution by the vendor. Maybe your customer's preferences changed over time, or maybe a competitive product pushed it out of the market. It could also have been a speculative inventory position that never really sold as well as hoped, and then eventually it withered on the vine. In each one of these cases, over time, the status of that item or items changed. At one point, it was a great item, then maybe it declined into a slow mover, and then perhaps it stalled, and eventually it became dead stock. If you knew or guessed that some of your inventory was eventually going to be dead stock, at which stage of this process would you most like to have been able to do something about it to clear it off your books, to get it out of your inventory? I would argue, and I think that most all inventory managers would agree with me, that if I knew I had to get rid of something, or else it would eventually have to be written off, then I want to know as soon as it became slow moving, right? So as soon as it kind of tricked over into the area of concern, past some threshold of decline. So at that stage, maybe we can do, a sales promotion to sell our remaining stock and make the most profit while clearing the inventory. If I miss that point and the stock becomes stalled, well, maybe then I can do an inventory swap with a vendor. In that case, there might be some extra handling that I may not want my warehouse to do, and often the vendor terms might be pretty stringent on those swaps. But that still ends up sort of being better than writing it off, which is what I'd have to do if it eventually does become dead stock. So the key is to address these types of issues as quickly as possible, as that will put me in a position to take the best action for the company. So with this introduction, I've set up two key problems. First, inventory managers have a number of core responsibilities that require them to look at a lot of different types of data. And second, the quicker that inventory managers know about a potential problem and sort of the clearer that problem can be seen, the better position they will be to address and resolve the issue before it becomes an emergency. So in the remainder of this webinar, I'm going to show you how Phocas can help you achieve these goals. So now I'm going to kick over into my demonstration environment. We can get a look at the product, and I'm going to talk a lot about how Phocas works and what it does, and how, the various functionalities. But you're going to be seeing a lot of this, or all of this rather, through the lens of inventory management. So right now you're looking at my Phocas Home dashboard. This particular one is for stock optimization, but this could be for any area of your business: sales, finance, purchasing, accounts receivable, rebates and commissions, whatever you want to look at. You can actually combine information from different areas of your business if you wanted to. So the widgets on this dashboard are refreshed from the latest underlying data from within Phocas, so it's constantly up to date. I've set this dashboard to be my home dashboard, so whenever I sign into Phocas, this is the very first thing that I will see. And so that's a key feature that I want to highlight, is that if you know what it is that you need to be looking at on a daily basis, you could put that information in front of you very consistently and accurately, and then you've got a much better chance of actually doing something about it. So looking at the top of my dashboard, you can see I've got some key summary information. I've got stock by product class, I've got stock by subclass, and then down here I have total inventory, number of products, and over here I have my dead stock value and the number of dead stock items. So this is demonstration data. It's not a live business that we're looking at, but the very first thing that I noticed, and I can see this without clicking any buttons or running any reports, is that while my dead stock value is pretty low, right, that's a little bit less than 1% of my total inventory, I can actually see that this is spread out over several thousand products, which means, as I'm sure you may already have drawn this conclusion, that this is incredibly difficult to manage, right? I've got a very small value, but it's spread over thousands of products. So it's not like I can analyze, a couple of dozen products and that'll just sort of knock it out of the park and I won't have to worry about it anymore. Obviously, this is sort of a complicated problem in different areas of my inventory. So again, looking at my dashboard, I can see the totals for the dead stock, but I don't know too much about it as of yet. Let's start with what would I like to know? Well, the first thing I want to know is my dead stock proportionate to my overall inventory by product class, right? What I'm asking is, I've got my product class breakdown for my stock products. Is my dead stock sort of proportionally representative of the same, or is it over concentrated in certain areas? And so that's where the power of the dashboard starts to shine through, is that what I can do is I can start by clicking on that top product class, illumination in this case. I can hit the focus button. And now I've added that product class as a filter to my dashboard. So my dashboard is now updated for only products within the illumination product class. Okay, so now if I look at my dead stock numbers, I can see that illumination makes up right around 50%, a little bit more of my inventory, and it makes up about 2/3 or so of that $120,000 in total dead stock. So it's a little bit disproportionate. I've got a little bit of overconcentration within within the dead stock values. Okay, so now I know a little bit now, but the next step is I actually do need to go ahead and find out which products or vendor lines are in that dead stock number, so I can start doing something about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Analyze button above my dead stock total value. If I hover over one of the widgets, you can see I get this header bar, and one of the options here is the Analyze button. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And now what's going to happen is it's going to take me to a list of all of my dead stock products for just that illumination product class, right? For just that filter that I already selected on the dashboard. Okay, so this is what we call this here is the focus grid, just to kind of give you a quick tour so you understand what it is that you're looking at. The center section lists rows of data records along with measures that I have selected to display. In this case, I'm looking at sales and I'm looking at stock on hand. Down the left-hand side, I've got various dimensions by which I can filter the records that are displayed in the grid. In this case, you can see that the product class dimension has an X next to it, and that's because I selected a product class in my filter from the dashboard. So when I made that selection in the dashboard and I clicked through the Analyze button, it preserved that dimension filter in the grid when I actually got to that point. Well, along the top are a number of different options that are going to help me display the data in the format that is most helpful for my needs. So I can change this view while still looking at the same records or same types of records. So in this case, just back to the records that I'm actually looking at, I'm looking at dead stock. In this case, usually that's something that I'm going to define as no sales in 12 months. And that's kind of where I'm at here. I've got a total of the dead stock, and I have the dead stock broken out by every individual product. And you can see how none of these products have any sales within the sales column. Okay, and I've got it sorted by stock on hand, but I could also sort it by name or any other column within the totals. So I'll go back and I'll sort it by stock on hand. So what I want to do, and you kind of saw it there, is that I had some items that had no stock on hand that were showing up on my list, and I don't want to have those exist currently, right? I don't want to see those in my records. So one of the things I can do is I can right-click on one of my columns and say stock on hand greater than 0. Okay, so now I've added an additional filter. You can see that it's displayed here at the top. And now I'm focused in on those 90 items that have some stock on, that at least have some stock on hand. Right? So I can kind of work with it from here. Okay, so this is a good start. This is not something, however, that I would consider actionable as of yet. So my first instinct with truly dead stock items might be to try to do an inventory swap with a vendor. So to do that, the first thing I need to really know is how much dead stock do I have for each vendor. So if I look at the dimensions on the left, I can see that I have an option under the product category for supplier/vendor. If I click that, now I'm no longer looking at individual products, but now I can see the totals for each of these vendors. And again, I'm still looking within just that illumination product class. So this is good information to have. I can start to work with this. What do I want to do from here? I'm going to grab one vendor's list of dead stock items. So I'll pick on Astra. That's obviously the bulk of my total dead stock. About 70,000 out of the 89,000 total. So from here, I'll select Astra, and I'm going to click back on product. Okay, so now I'm looking at just the Astra product that's still considered dead stock, and again, I'm looking at just within that illumination product class. So this is a pretty good list. Really what I want to do from here is I want to send this to my Astra vendor rep. I want them to take a look at this list of products and see if these are things that they're willing to take back from me. Okay, so first thing I might do is I actually might get rid of that product class filter. I just want to show all product classes that I purchased from Astra. So I can click that X. That removes the illumination filter. And now here are the 73 items that meet the filter conditions I put into place that are Astra products. From here, the next step is I want to download this into Excel because I want to email it off to that vendor rep. So I can click on the export option. You can see I've got a few different options here for the formats. I can print it and put it into a PDF. I can email it direct, or in this case, I might just download it into Excel. And when I click that, I will get this download into that nice Excel package, and I can send that off to the vendor rep for them to take a look at and see if that's something that I can actually swap out. Okay, so just to kind of step back for a second, talk about what we just did. This whole process, which if I wasn't sort of describing it, elaborating, as I went, would have taken about 15 seconds, right? I could have started at a really high level. I come in the morning, I sign into Phocas, I see the dead stock on my inventory dashboard, I start analyzing it by selecting the illumination product line, I drill into the underlying products, I've added some filters, I'm looking at one particular supplier, and I was able to download the file and send it off to that vendor's rep. Again, very, very quickly, very, very easy to do because a lot of those paths are pre-established based on the way that you built your dashboard. So again, you can start at a very high level and drill all the way through the underlying data to capture something that's very useful for you to work with. And that is really what the power of Phocas is about, is to make it really easy for you to find areas of your data that you can act on that are going to improve your business. In this case, we did an example through dead stock. Okay, so let's go back up to the dashboard. I'm going to do a little bit more work here. I'm going to hit reset to remove that illumination product class filter. So now I'm looking again at all of my inventory. Earlier, I talked a little bit about the stages that you might have for inventory. So you have new, and then slow moving, and then stalled, and then dead stock. If I scroll down my dashboard a little bit, you can see that I have the same categorizations here, right? So I've got declining products, and I've got declining, I've got new product lines, and I've got stalled products as well, right? So I've got a good look here at what I have that might be declining or stalled or new products, because I want to capture these things at different areas, right? So what I've done, as opposed to with dead stock, is I've defined these parameters a little bit differently. So if I click on product lines declining, and I hit that analyze button again, it's going to take me back into the grid, and I can see the additional filter that I've put in place. all of this is built off of our advanced search capability. So when you use advanced search, you can define different parameters, and in this case, do comparisons between them to kind of see what's going on, and then filter through a lot of different records. So in this case, just to sort of explain what's happening here, is I'm looking for instances where the sales of these products over time have been declining. So this demo data happens to be from about this time last year. You can see that I'm looking where sales in November were higher than December. December was higher than January. January was higher than February. So I've got that nice 3-month trend of declining sales for these products that then I want to capture both what those products are and how much inventory I've got tied up in them. You know, once I know that information, then I can start understanding a little bit more about which areas of my inventory are becoming a little riskier, right? So the lower your sales velocity for any given product, the more riskier it is that you'll eventually have to write that product off in the form of dead stock, right? So any seasonal issues aside, this is a pretty good indication of a trend. Anything that meets these parameters that I might want to keep an eye on. If I go back to my dashboard, I can do the same thing with stalled, and I can do the same thing with new products. If I want to know products that maybe I haven't sold recently that have all of a sudden started to sell, and I need to see what's going on there, I can kind of keep track of those as well. What's nice about this is that as I start working with these products, this is also information that I can share with others in my organization. For like the sales team, for example, maybe they can give me a little bit more insight on why certain products are stalled or declining. So this is a pretty good review of some of the power of Phocas when it comes to dealing with inventory in sort of those declining stages. I want to know kind of about the flip side now. I want to talk about inventory that might be selling fine, but maybe I have too much stock on hand and I need to right size or rebalance my inventory. So let's take a look at this overstock widget. So in this case, what I've done, I'm going to go ahead and analyze it on the grid. And now I'm looking at not the same sort of inventory values that I was looking at before, but I'm actually looking at a month's cover or a month's supply calculation that I've put into place. Okay, so this is a great area where I can show you a little bit about how custom mode works within Phocas. So one of my options here in the top left, if I scroll down, I click on custom mode. Custom mode is where I can start using where I can start using existing measures to start defining or I can define additional calculations or additional columns to use within the grid. So in this case, what I'm doing is I've got a variable here for stock on hand quantity. I've got a variable here for sales quantity over the last 12 months. And I'm doing this calculation to say like, okay, in that 12-month period, what was my monthly usage? And then let me divide my stock on hand quantity by that monthly usage to come up with a month supply number, right? So this is a really great analytical tool because now I can see what are all of the items where I've got more than a year's supply on hand. And you can see I've added that filter here. Again, this was done in the advanced search option. So it looks very similar to that custom mode. Okay, so this is a good way to look at this. The key to this example and what I want to kind of leave you with here, or what I want to stick with you, is that you don't have to necessarily understand how to set this up or how to prepare this query. It was pretty easy. It's very flexible. You have a lot of different options there. The point is that I didn't actually have to set it up on the fly. At some point in the past, I decided that this is an important piece of information. I want to look at it. I set it up the way I wanted, and then I saved it on my dashboard. So with only a few clicks, the same as dead stock inventory, I can start dealing with it, right, directly from this high-level dashboard. Okay, so let's look what else I have. I scroll down a little bit. My dashboard, I've got a little bit further. I've got sort of the reverse of overstock here, sort of the mortal enemy of inventory managers everywhere, is low stock. I've got a similar calculation here. I'm looking for that average sales per month, and then I'm combining it with my current on hand, my back orders, netting that to my available, and then looking at any on hand options, or I'm sorry, on hand, on the on order quantities that I have coming in. right? So what I can see here is I can see, okay, here's what my net inventory position is going to end up being. Given that, what's my average usage per month, and then what calculations I put in place to suggest myself in order quantity. Okay, so that's really helpful. That's good information to have. And again, that's something that I set up in custom mode to have that sort of preset on my dashboard. I'm not suggesting that necessarily you run your reordering directly from Phocas, but you could do it if you wanted to. I think it's more of a high-level view of something that you might want to keep tabs on. Again, just at a high level. Okay, so let's switch gears away from day-to-day management of the inventory, and we're going to take a look at a little bit more of a strategic inventory management, sort of folded in with finance and sales. So a great measure of inventory in the context of the rest of the business is GMROI. That's gross margin return on investment. I've seen a few different definitions. The one I like to use is how much gross profit did I make over the last year, given my average inventory investment during that time frame. It's a really easy way, once you set it up, to compare different products across sales and pricing alongside inventory turns and on-hand value. You could have one product with very low turns but high margins, and another product with very low margins but high turns, and you can kind of understand that the end result of both might be a very similar contribution to your profit based on the average investment needed. Obviously, there are different ways of calculating it. That's just one that I happen to like. So there's something within Phocas I haven't showed quite yet, and that's a favorite. I go over to my sidebar menu and I click on favorites. I can search through here, and you can see that I've got a few different types of favorites here around the GMROI reports. And when I click on one of those, it'll launch me into that saved report. I've got that right here. So in this case, I'm looking at this GMROI report based on these four measures. I've got my profit, I've got my average stock value, my turns, and my GMROI. This is actually the wrong one. This is the one I want. There we go. Profit, stock value, turns, GMROI, and I've built this using custom mode. So you can see here's my profit stock, here's my turns calculation. So I've got my average on hand, which is being divided into my cost of goods sold, and then I've got my GMROI calculation as well. Right. So I have all that math being done, which then allows me to drill through those same measures in a lot of different ways. So what I can do here is I can say, okay, here's my overall profitability or my GMROI across my different vendors. I can drill into one particular vendor and see how are different product classes from that vendor performing. And again, I can keep drilling through and say, how are different products within those product classes performing? So whatever categorizations you have within your ERP, you can drill through those to be able to capture kind of different ways of looking at those records. GMROI is a great example because it can be kind of hard to be able to have really robust reporting that allows you that capability or that level of filtering. So this is good. This is good information. But maybe I want to see it a different way. Maybe I've got vendor meetings coming up. And this is something I kind of want to be able to share out or prepare in advance of those meetings. I've got another way of looking at the same report as a nested grid. So I'll click over to my next option here. In this case, you could see I've got those same columns, but I've actually nested this grid a little bit. So I've got expansion sections. So what I can do is here are my different suppliers. If I want to pick on Astra again, I can expand that section and then have the subtotals within each of those broader categories, right? So it's just a different way to look at the same sorts of information with perhaps a different format, and you don't have to do as much clicking back and forth to filter across the different or to toggle back and forth between the different dimensions. So in this way, you can drill all the way down from the vendor. If I wanted to, I could keep going down all the way into the product, or I could add that as a category as well, if that made sense for what it was that I wanted to look at. So that's really the extent of what I wanted to show you today. Hopefully that's been very helpful in giving you a great idea of how Phocas works. I think the key to understand is that we give you a lot of flexibility around the types of reporting that you want to do or the types of analysis that you really want to dig into. But you can roll that all up into these nice dashboards. So once you establish those KPIs or metrics or analytical paths, you don't have to recreate the wheel every time. You can very consistently go into the same metrics from that dashboard level and drill in very quickly to very usable data that makes sense for whatever your situation might be. Remember, in the beginning of this whole webinar, I said that inventory is a function of time, and in some respects, as an inventory manager, that boils down to what can I do now and quickly to head off issues in the future. And the alternative to that is, what are the things that I'm going to have to react to after it's already become an emergency? I think today I've made a good effort to make it clear how Phocas can help you be proactive and efficient when it comes to managing your inventory before you end up in those emergency situations. So you're actively managing the inventory rather than just reacting to emergencies as they come up. So I want to thank you for your time viewing my demo today, and I'm going to hand it back over to Courtney for the question and answer section.
Thanks, Paige. That was wonderful. Now it's time for some Q&A. So if you have some additional questions, go ahead and type them in. But we did have a few that came in during the webinar. Let's take a look. First, Paige, I have to share reports with different people. How do I do that? Can you share a little bit more again about the shareable reports and the automated function?
Yeah, so the way that you share reports is very easy within Phocas. If I was working with my, say this report, for example, this GMROI report, when I save this as a favorite, I was able to click the Save Favorite option up here. It gives me a dialog, I give it a name, and et cetera. But down at the bottom of this screen is a list of other users that I could share this out with. So by clicking, Abby or Adam or Alex, whoever, when I save that, it then becomes a report that's accessible within their Phocas environment, and it's something that they can click over to, and then you can also you can both be looking at the same data, which obviously can be very helpful.
Great. The next question we had was, is the data updated often in the system?
Yep, so the data is typically updated every night. We're pulling two types of records. We're pulling transactional records and master records. So that's the transactional records would be like your sales invoice line items and your inventory balances. And your master records are the products, files, and customers and vendors and so on. And then we do indexing and summarization of those that allow this drill through capability to work. You can update nightly. That is the sort of typical parameter. If you want to update more often, we would need to kind of scope that out a little bit, but it can be done. The main limiting factor there is how much data you want to update. I usually, when I talk to people about this, I tell them, like, if you want to update 20 years of sales data every 15 minutes, that's not particularly feasible. But if you wanted to update, say, the last 3 months of sales twice an hour, yeah, that's something that could that we could absolutely scope out and help you achieve.
Great. The last question I have so far is, I run Salesforce, so can I bring that in?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. So beyond ease of use, one of our biggest values that we see with folks using our tool is that you can bring in data from virtually any source. And then you have one nice sort of single source of truth that you can use for all your reporting and analytics. So our data integration tool is called Phocas Sync. It is completely data agnostic. So if you have flat files or Excel spreadsheets or a Microsoft Access data, or maybe you've got a SQL database that has nothing to do with your ERP, or you've got some ODBC connection or even APIs, wherever that data is coming from, you can bring it into Phocas and we can train you on how to map it. So you can create either standalone databases, in this case, maybe a standalone database for your Salesforce activity, or what you might want to do is take your Salesforce activity data, match it up against your actual sales data from your ERP, and then you would actually be able to do useful comparisons across the different systems. So you could calculate, okay, what are my sales per activity for this customer, for example. It might be a good use case. What's great about that is it's all easy to use. It's all in the same format. So you don't have to have folks within your organization learning additional systems just to get the reporting they need out of it. They can have this one place, this one repository in Phocas that has all the data coming in where they can access it.
Great, thanks, Paige. That actually now brings us to the conclusion of our webinar. That was all of the questions that we had for today. If you want to learn more, please feel free to contact us and we'd be happy to schedule a personalized demo for your business. You can do that at marketing@phocassoftware.com and we'll get you set up with that demo. So I appreciate you all taking the time today to join us and to the user group for hosting as well. I'll hand this back over to Gloria, but hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.
We would like to thank everyone who attended this afternoon. Thank you, Paige and Courtney, for the great content. And this will be available for viewing going forward online tomorrow afternoon. Thanks again to everyone. Paige, Courtney, thanks for a great job. And as they say in Hollywood, that's a wrap.